Robert Fisk is one of the few journalists to interview Osama bin Laden. He spoke with bin Laden 3 times, in fact, and now argues that the al-Qaeda leader died a non-entity. Fisk is also the highest profile and longest serving foreign correspondent in the Middle East. He's lived in Beirut for more than 35 years and has distinguished himself covering the Lebanese civil war, the revolution in Iran and the 2 wars involving Iraq. I spoke with Robert Fisk by satellite to Beirut late today. Robert Fisk, you've now had a week to reflect on the death of Osama bin Laden and to take your own soundings. So how do you assess things now?
Well, you know, when I heard he was dead originally, a few hours after the attack on his house, till now, I have the same feeling, and that is indifference. You know, the old cliche, where it's become a cliche, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And he did. I think that it was an enormous mistake not to capture him, but to kill him, and then this weird, creepy burial at sea, you know, as creepy as al-Qaeda and bin Laden, was very strange. I would have liked to have seen him put on trial. You know, we Westerners, we say we would like to have justice in the world. Well, if we want justice, that means a court. That means due process. That means a defense, a prosecutor. It means punishment. It means the man must be seen to be given his just deserts. He received his just deserts, you might say, by being killed, but he didn't receive his justice, which should have been in a court. And instead of that, we used bin Laden's methods. We got rid of him. We executed him, basically. And I think that was a big mistake.
They have
having
denied
said that, I remain indifferent to his death.
Yeah.
I think he was a violent man, and he expected to die in a violent way, and he did.
The Americans, of course, have denied execution. They say it was capture or kill, and that in the moment, that was the decision they took.
Yeah, well, he was unarmed, and if the elite forces of America, I put this in quotation marks, can't capture a leading terrorist like this, then it doesn't say much about the elite forces, does it?
It's a big call to describe, as you have, the man who orchestrated September 11, which in turn led to the miring of America and its allies in Iraq and Afghanistan, as a non-entity. He may have cut a lonely figure in the end, but had he really become a non-entity even to his own followers?
I think so, yes. You see, he promised that he would get rid of all the pro-Western dictators in the Arab world, the Mubaraks and the bin Alis and so on. And he didn't. He failed. It was the people who got rid of the Mubaraks and the bin Alis, and who are fighting to get rid of the Assads and the Gaddafis and the Salehs in Yemen. Not under the Islamic flag, but under their own flag. They didn't want a caliphate. He had failed in all he promised to do. Indeed, we only had one message from him this year, and that was the blowing up of this restaurant a week or 2 ago in Marrakesh in Morocco. That was the only thing. I think that, in effect, al-Qaeda had ceased to exist as a living entity, a political entity. Violent entity, it may continue. We may see retaliation. We may see more bombings. But as a real entity with political backing, it had failed. The people of the Muslim Arab world had taken their own decision. They didn't want a caliphate. They wanted democracy, freedom. They wanted to breathe.
What do you think of the claim that al-Qaeda is rebuilding in Afghanistan?
Look, I don't think al-Qaeda has any purpose in Afghanistan. I think that what is happening there is a nationalist insurgency against foreign fighters. Us, you, the Brits, the Americans, etc. What is going on in Afghanistan has nothing to do with al-Qaeda. If al-Qaeda join in, well, fine, as far as the Taliban are concerned. But this is a nationalist insurgency, like all the others. It's very interesting, you know, a very dear friend of mine, my wife, gave me a book, which was the British inquiry into the 1880s battle between the British and the Afghans. We're talking more than 100 years ago, in which one of the officers describes black turbaned fighters as being Taliban. They were fighting us then, they're fighting us now. It is not al-Qaeda.
Is it possible that the top echelons of the Pakistan government and the military could have been ignorant of the fact that Osama bin Laden had been living in their midst for years?
No, absolutely not. The Taliban have good relations with many various areas of the inter-services intelligence, ISI, in Pakistan. The ISI is divided between those who are very fond of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, and those who are not and are very pro-American, and who, of course, are paid by the Americans. But I'll give you a story. I'll tell you a little, very small story that will give you the picture. Several months ago, I went to Pakistan and I wanted to interview the man blamed by the Americans and by the Indians for the massacres in Mumbai. And I knew he lived in Lahore, and it took me 24 hours to arrange an interview. And when I arrived at his house in Lahore, he was being guarded by two uniformed members, officers of the Pakistan police force, holding submachine guns and standing behind shelters at the front door of his house. Now, if they know where he is, they knew where bin Laden was. Excuse me, don't let's go into the world of fairy tales. They knew where bin Laden was.
One of the many WikiLeaks revelations late last year was the comment from the Pakistan Prime Minister to the American ambassador with regard to America's drone program, quote, "I don't care if they do it as long as they get the right people. We'll protest in the National Assembly and then ignore it." What does that say of the games being played at all levels in Pakistan?
It says exactly what it says to you and me. It's a totally corrupt regime in Pakistan, unfortunately. I'm one of the few reporters who actually likes going to Pakistan. I think it's a fine country. People are very educated and people know what's going on. But in the current situation, you see the Pakistanis are trapped. The real problem is not Afghanistan. The real problem is Kashmir. And Pakistan knows very well that the Americans have taken India's side over the issue of Kashmir because, of course, they want India to be the bulwark against China, etc., etc. That's why Richard Holbrooke, who's now dead, and his replacement have been told, you deal with Afghanistan, you deal with Pakistan, you do not deal, you do not deal with Kashmir. And Pakistan want to have an equal say in the issue of divided Kashmir, just as the Palestinians want an equal say in the issue of the Palestinians in the Palestine-Israel dispute. And America will not give them that equal side. And for that reason, many Pakistanis continue to support the Taliban. That is why the war goes on in Afghanistan.
And how do you believe this American incursion to get Osama bin Laden has impacted on the Pakistan government, which was struggling anyway?
Oh, it'll pass away. You know, Pakistan has many more problems than the existence of bin Laden. So does the Middle East, by the way. It's interesting that in all the Middle East papers this morning, there's not a single one with a headline about bin Laden. It's all about the uprising of the Arab people for democracy. And the Pakistan papers are now beginning to focus again on the problems of Pakistan. It is only in the West that we're still obsessed with bin Laden, who is, as I said in my paper, after he died, a non-entity.
Robert Fisk, thanks very much for talking with us.
You're welcome.
Our next guest is Peter Galbraith, a former US diplomat and UN envoy who was closely involved in the Croatian and Bosnian peace processes for President Clinton in the 90s and for the UN in East Timor's transition to independence. In 2009, he was appointed as the UN's Deputy Special Representative for Afghanistan, but was embroiled in controversy and was forced from the job after denouncing as fraudulent the election that saw the return of President Karzai. Peter Galbraith is now a Democrat senator in the state of Vermont, and I spoke with him late today by satellite to Bergen in Norway. Peter Galbraith, does it bother you that many people have formed or may form the view that Osama bin Laden was in fact executed? And can you understand how the conflicting stories from official sources might have added to that impression?
This was an operation taking place in secret on the territory of another country. I mean, it was 100 miles inside Pakistan. This was not a police operation taking place within the United States. And so, frankly, it just operated under different constraints. And I, as a practical matter, I see no reason to regret that Osama bin Laden isn't on trial. He got what he deserved, and from a geopolitical point of view, it was clearly better for him to be out of the way, gone, the story over, no trial that would keep him in the news, no opportunity for him to present his rants. In the end, this probably worked out the best. But I want to emphasize, I do not believe that that he was executed. I believe the goal of the mission was to kill or capture him, and he was clearly killed in the process of the mission. It's not as if he had been captured and then was executed.
As a former special envoy, UN envoy to Afghanistan, do you think that bin Laden's death will make it any easier to reach some kind of binding peace agreement between the Karzai government and the Taliban that would allow America and the NATO forces to withdraw?
No. Although the United States and its allies, including Australia, went into Afghanistan after September 11th because of Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda, which had been sheltered by the Taliban government, al-Qaeda is not present in any significant degree, to the best of our knowledge, in Afghanistan. Its leaders had moved to Pakistan, as evidenced by the fact that that's where Osama bin Laden was found and killed. It operates out of Pakistan, out of Yemen, out of Somalia. What we're facing in Afghanistan is an indigenous Pashtun nationalist movement, the Taliban, and one that does not have any global aspirations in the way that Osama bin Laden did.
You've previously argued that America can't win in Afghanistan because it has no credible local partner. Do you still believe the Karzai government isn't credible, that no gains have been made on governance issues like corruption?
Well, the point is that the United States and its allies are pursuing a counterinsurgency strategy. And if General Petraeus was sitting here, he would say exactly what I'm about to say, which is that a counterinsurgency strategy cannot be executed by the U.S. and its allies alone. It requires an Afghan partner. And it requires an Afghan partner to go in after we've secured an area, to provide security, to provide police for law and order, and to provide good governance, or at least adequate governance, that can win the loyalty of the population. And in the case of Karzai's administration, we have a government that ranks as the second or third most corrupt in the world, that is notoriously ineffective, that is in office as a result of massively fraudulent elections, whose leader is a bit strange in his behavior. And that's been the case for several years now. And the situation, if anything, has deteriorated. Corruption has become worse in Afghanistan. Certainly the collapse of the Kabul bank, where Karzai's own brother was a major shareholder, getting millions of dollars in unsecured loans, in fact, getting the money to buy his 7% stake as a loan from the bank, something that's just unprecedented. The billions that have been spent to build up a national police have been almost entirely wasted, because while you can teach the recruits to be policemen, they haven't been very successful at that, but that you can teach them policing skills, you can't teach them to be honest. And it isn't just that they're personally dishonest, but they are the tip of a massive iceberg of corruption, where they are the ones who are having to skim off the money from